All right, Vetters, the wait is over. Vetted's first feature-length documentary is available now, okay? Mac is excited. All right, we're ready to go on this. So again, go to psionics.film and you can purchase the film right now. It is available, okay? And don't forget, included with the film is over 2 hours of extra footage we did not include in the documentary. I don't ask much, but please go support this film. So again, go to psionics.film, put a link in the description, and you can go purchase the film right now. Like I said, it's available right now. And be sure and let me know what you think of it. Now, let's begin today's video.
And you talked about the video that you're pursuing right now, the orbs. If there is one thing, one question you could have answered, one piece of information that is sort of missing that for you would be a game changer, that you think is out there, what would it be? Like, what would the one thing be right now if you could have it in your hands? What would it be?
Well, I mean, a lot of the people that have talked about interacting with these egg-shaped craft that we have in our possession, I want to see the craft. We've heard people that have claimed that they've gone into it and they've lost time. I want to go into the craft. I want to see for myself. Again, I'm from Missouri. You're going to have to show me. And so that's until I get to that point, everything is going to be blurry videos.
Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. So what's today's video about? Well, it's about Representative Eric Burlison from the great state of Missouri, the Show Me State, doing an interview on News Nation and giving a lot of updates and revealing some new information that I personally had not heard. So more than likely, you haven't heard it either, especially this egg-shaped craft that when you step inside of it, you lose time, and Eric Burlison is wanting to get in this craft and see it. Yeah. Now let's jump into this interview because there's a lot to cover.
So there's been a lot happening on the disclosure front. Not as much as you'd like to be happening, though. You put out a message on social media talking about some roadblocks that you've been hitting, and I was wondering if you could just start by elaborating on what you're facing, what you're trying to get, and why so far you haven't been able to get access.
I think that, and I was very grateful that the president issued the truth, if you will. And I've seen some momentum happen within the intelligence agency, within ODNI. There seems to be a new level of momentum and energy put around this. I would say it went from being a low-ranking item to one of the top priorities, which is fantastic. I think that the things that have been released so far are the low-hanging fruit. These are things that a lot of them have already been leaked to the public before. Many of them are videos that there's been a lot of chatter about, but have been already disproven as prosaic, whether it's like a balloon or a bird or a flock of birds. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good start. I think that this administration understands that they need to go further. They need to really dig. And in order to do that, you're going to have to take the investigation to the next step, which is bringing people in under oath. People that have knowledge or have claimed to have knowledge, find out exactly what they know and where the craft are, where the bodies are, if you will, and get that information. The other thing that you're going to have to do is go to the privates, because I think a lot of this has been in the hands of whether it's the private businesses or the federally funded research development centers that are kind of working in a quasi-public-private fashion. Yeah. And so that's where my investigation, that's where my team and all of our work effort is going, is focusing on trying to get the information out of the hands of those privates.
So let's talk about that, because that's a totally different challenge, right? This is not something that as a member of Congress, you can go and say, hey, I'm an elected official, let me in, like you can for many federal buildings and programs, right? This is not something you can FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. So how do you try to get private entities to cooperate with you on this kind of investigation?
So we've sent we've got people on the inside that have given us information about particular documents, video files or other that they say exists in these, whether it's MIT Lincoln Labs, RAND, MITRE, you name it. We're going after it. But we follow up on people giving us information. So hopefully somebody's watching this who works in one of these private companies or federally funded research development centers and saying, aha, I know who to reach out to let him know about more files. But we follow those leads. We send letters that are very specific that are nearly impossible for them to get out of and request it. And so far they've been very cooperative. So we've had Aerospace Corporation executives come to talk to us in a skiff. We've had we've had Lincoln Labs, MIT Lincoln Labs respond already. There's probably more that that there's more to go with that. And so we've got a letter back from MITRE that their legal team said that they will be working to respond to it.
Wow. So do you have better luck with individuals than with the company? I mean, MITRE seems to be somewhat cooperating, but when you get those individuals, you're having more luck in terms of getting information from them?
Well, the people that are coming to us behind the scenes, absolutely. They're getting us information. And it turns out the one, when it came to MIT Lincoln Labs, was spot on. They do have a video file that we're going to try to get access to. So without breaking the law, essentially, and revealing what you learned in a skiff, can you just characterize what are the categories of things that you're seeking when you get into a skiff with somebody who's working for one of these companies, and what can they give you? What kinds of things? Yeah, I want to know the nuts and bolts. I'm at a place where we've heard a lot of really outrageous stories and testimonies from people, but I want to see the receipts. I really am trying to track down the materials and in anything that's physical or photographic or video evidence that we can get our hands on.
Can I just say that I really like Eric Burleson? You know, he's getting so much shit thrown at him, right? So many people coming to him with stories and, people very credentialed, in fact, but he still stays grounded, right? He never forgets the one thing that he needs, which is evidence. Stories are great, even from people you trust and who are credentialed, but you still need evidence. And he's actually doing the most work in Congress to get that evidence, right? And he's really putting in a lot of effort, and I have to commend him. And again, with everything that gets thrown at him, he still stays grounded, right? He still wants to see proof of these claims. He can, take it seriously, but not forget the end goal, which is proof, which is what the world is going to need at the end of the day to really believe this, and you can believe it, but if you see the proof, you'll really believe it, right? Those are two different things. And you really won't know the feeling of the latter until it happens, right? Until there is this indisputable proof, right? And you're like, man, I did believe it, but holy cow, oh my God, this is real, So again, I just really appreciate Eric Burleson's efforts, and he is my favorite person in Congress looking into this. And I just love that he stays grounded, and we need people like him doing this work, right? Even if we don't think that disclosure will ever come from the government, there's always still a possibility, right? And Eric Burleson is doing the most to make that possibility potentially a reality.
I want to go back to the White House for a minute. There was this release of videos and files, and I think for people who are not super familiar with the topic, that was maybe the first time that they'd seen in depth anything, on the phenomenon. For us, who've been sort of in this world now for a couple of years, I think your point is right. It wasn't exactly groundbreaking stuff. Some of it we already knew. Some of it was public. Do you think we're close to the White House releasing videos, pictures, more documents that would be more groundbreaking, that sort of holy blank moment where it is an undeniable thing that this phenomenon is real, and that, you know, decades and decades worth of knowledge has been known about it that hasn't been public?
So I don't know is the answer. I have seen video footage and photos of things that I think would take it to the next level, but it's not definitive. So,
Okay.
and I'll just describe them. Most of what has not been released, that to me is the really mysterious thing, are the glowing orbs, like these balls of plasma that seem to move in an intelligent way. In some cases, they're static; they just hover without any noticeable signs of aerodynamics or like propellers. They just sit still, and in some cases, they can like immediately accelerate. And I think that, so I've seen the video footage of that, and I hope that, I'm confident that will be released. And if it's not, I will be throwing a fit about it. But that will be eye opening for some people. But it's not definitive. When I see those videos, I can't tell you this is clearly from another planet.
Right. We
Right.
don't know what it is.
But we know it's something that we've never seen before.
So is that the Pentagon's call right now? Who is the door right now that is keeping it closed? Who's at that door?
That would probably fall under ODNI, under their direction, whether or not they're ready to release those.
And why, in your estimation, have they not released stuff like that? That, again, you as a member of Congress have seen.
So,
guys, this is a game changer.
I think, I'm only speculating, but I think because if you saw these videos, you would know, people could probably determine the location.
Okay.
And some of these are in residential communities, and you would see, I would hate to have like my neighborhood blown up by people who are coming in to Skywatch.
Okay. Understandable. I imagine there could be ways to maybe get around that stuff.
Yes,
and maybe
yeah.
that's an ongoing discussion.
So we're talking about the tranche of files that has been released by the Trump administration, right? We've had 2 so far. And in fact, people were estimating that today they were going to be releasing the 3rd tranche because they've come every 2 weeks. At least there was 2-week interval in between the first 2 tranches, but it looks like that has not happened. So now it's kind of anyone's game as to when the next release will be. And to be fair, we don't even know how many releases there'll be. This next one could be the last one. We don't know. They haven't said really. But what's interesting is, Eric Burlison saying there is way better stuff to put out, right? So it kind of just seems wasteful to just put out stuff that's kind of useless, birds and balloons that literally came in the last tranche of files, right? That's just going to dissuade people. And then when the next tranche comes, it's like, I'm not even going to check it out. There's going to be birds and balloons. What is the point, right? So put the best stuff out first, right? It just seems like it doesn't help in any way to just release nonsense, right? Again, releasing unidentified stuff when you say you have identified stuff. Why do we care about the unidentified stuff, right? Who cares about UFOs and UAP? We want to see the alien spacecraft that you said you have videos of, crystal clear 4K footage. And even these, quote, orbs that Eric Burlison is talking about, right? And he describes them as interesting, compelling to move forward, but it's not definitive, right? And, they don't want to release it because it's over residential areas. It's like they're worried about people going into Skywatch at these residential areas. I mean, I don't know. That's a weird reason to not release the stuff. But, what I think is interesting is he says like balls of plasma. Like, first of all, what is plasma to him, right? What does that mean, plasma and balls of plasma? And how do you know that that's plasma that you're seeing, right? Those are weird things, right? It makes me think that's what Eric Burlison is being told. So that's what he's describing it as. But what does that really mean? And see, people don't ask these questions. They just hear these words and hear these things and just move on. But these are important questions to ask, right? We got to get into the nitty gritty, right? What's the saying? The devil's in the details. Yeah. we're going to have to get into the details.
I did want to talk about life imitating art for a minute. And we have this big movie coming up, Steven Spielberg, on disclosure.
Yeah.
The movie, I think, focuses in some part on the government trying to prepare people for
Right.
a revelation like this, and what are the effects? What are the impacts on just the public knowing this stuff?
Right.
I'm wondering, are those conversations real? Are they happening? Have you been in discussion with people about what is the impact on the public if we release information like that?
Ironically, yes. In fact, it was a big blow up on the internet, on Twitter, that I called into a conference of pastors that were meeting in Tennessee. I'd been invited to that event. I couldn't come, but I said, I'm happy to call in. I didn't participate in the conversation, but the reason I was calling in is to say, look, at the end of the day, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and everything that the longer I've been studying this, the more it doesn't shake my faith. If anything, it underscores my faith. And I just want people to kind of, I challenge those pastors to stick to what the Bible really says and not what you think the Bible says.
Yeah.
So, for example, the Bible does not say that Satan has goat legs, a horn, and a pitchfork.
Yeah.
There's other descriptions, but just stick to the factual information and don't go with what the medieval worldview is. And I think that we'll probably, even if there's never aliens that arrive and never a point of disclosure, that will probably make all of us better Christians and better believers. Okay. And so that was my conversation. And I think that so yes, to your point, there are communities that are understanding that they need to be prepared for this, because if there's some more revelation to come forward.
Yeah. Have you been in touch with the filmmakers by chance?
I have not. No.
Okay. So I know the Age of Disclosure documentary. They were certainly in touch with a lot of members of Congress. So
and I kind of came in later. So I think they filmed that before I got into Congress. Obviously, I got in and quickly hit the ground running on this topic, but I'm not in that movie. But I have been in a lot of conversations with Dan Farah. I think he produced a great movie, and I am excited to see the Steven Spielberg movie coming out. And I understand that he sees it. I saw an interview where he almost said that while it's a movie, it's a fictional story. To him, it's based on as much nonfiction as possible.
Yeah, saw that too. Very interesting.
So yes, we have this brand new movie from Steven Spielberg that is coming out next week, Disclosure Day, and there was so much hype for this film. Everyone that has seen it, at least the mass majority of the initial reviews that have come out, are just, again, calling it a masterpiece. Steven Spielberg's best movie in 20 years. It's amazing. It's hopeful. It's emotional, action-packed, and Steven Spielberg's been doing a lot of interviews, and he has said that about, this movie is, although it's science fiction, it is based on some real stuff, in his opinion. Like, he sees it as sort of a nonfiction film, because he believes that the government is hiding, right, craft and bodies, and hopes that can all be, coming out one day, which, hey, he's not alone. We all want that, right? And even if we think it, we still haven't seen the proof yet of it. And I've seen Spielberg talk about that. The proof has to come out. We can't forget about that proof, right? A lot of claims, very interesting and very compelling, but that will only take us so far. And the part of me thinks that, it's just like, the point is just to get the public to believe, but nothing ever happens. Does that make sense? So we just believe it, but we never see it, like religion, right? I mean, you had Eric Burleson there talking about the Bible. We don't actually see God or see Jesus or any of this, right? We just have the Bible and stories, claims made a long time ago, and people just believe it. And there's a whole industry around religion in the entire world, right? Tons of, I mean, I would say the majority of the world population is religious in the sense that, you know, they're either Muslim or Jewish or Christian or Hindu, or, you know, there's so many different religions, right? And they all think they're right. You know what I mean? And ufology is kind of doing the same thing. A lot of claims, no proof, right? A lot of stories sound cool. You know, it's almost like we're trying to build this church of ufology. But the crazy thing is that allegedly there is proof, you know, just there that we have it. And the government is holding it secret, which is an interesting twist. You know, religion isn't necessarily like that. It's not like people are accusing the U.S. government of hiding Jesus's cross or Jesus's body, or does that make sense? Right. So it's an interesting position to be in. Right. So, you know, at the end of the day, I'm glad that these films come out. I'm glad that filmmakers like Steven Spielberg get inspired for this stuff to still make films about it. And I mean, to be fair, I just cannot wait to see that movie, right? It's going to be badass. Disclosure Day, baby.
You know, just one more question before we go. There is this sort of morality question that you touched on a lot here in your previous answer. I just wonder what you make, big picture, of the idea that there are things that are in our airspace, can't definitively say what they are, but we can definitively say we don't know how they operate. Our laws of physics don't seem to apply. And one reason the government has for years held on to that information is because of fear of how people would react to that, whether it's religious communities or other, you know, maybe it's shaking people's faith in the idea that the U.S. government can protect them from certain threats. What do you make of the government even weighing that at all as a reason not to disclose?
I think that they weigh that, but I think that it's actually the opposite. The more that I've looked into this, the more I think that that this government does not want to reveal the fact that they have a weakness. They don't want to demonstrate that they don't know what's going on.
And sorry, when you say this government, we're obviously not just talking about the Trump administration, but several administrations going back decades.
Right. Like, you don't want to telegraph to its own citizens that we're incapable of defending our airspace above our own military bases, that we're incapable, we do not have the scientific knowledge or understanding of what it is that we're experiencing or what we're seeing. Because you could be giving up the bag to, giving it up to your adversaries, if this is what your adversaries are doing, that you don't know what's happening, or you're giving it up to your own citizens that we aren't as strong as you think we are. And I think that is the motivation, probably more so than anything, why this has not been disclosed.
You know, one question I've always had about that is, you know, I thought the story is that we've had agreements with the aliens. So why would they just be flying around our airspace? Does that make sense? Like, wouldn't we come out and say, well, we have agreements with them and they're flying around? You know what I mean? So it's not like we don't have control of our airspace. Like, does that make sense? It's just all these conflicting stories, right? And narratives that are so wildly different, coming from the same people, the people that he's talking about, Eric Burleson, right? You know, Dan Farah, for instance, he said he's been speaking with him about age of disclosure. Well, Dan Farah has said that, you know, he's been told we got agreements with the aliens. David Grush has brought that up. And he is been an advisor to Eric Burleson for 2 years. So why would we come out and say, well, we got aliens flying around our military bases, our stuff, and unchecked? Wait a second, we got agreements with them. Wouldn't that be part of the agreement? You see, again, the devil's in the details. We don't ask these questions. We don't push back on this stuff. And that's why we need proof to come out to dispel some of these claims, right? If it's true, which of all these crazy claims are true and which have been absolute bullshit, right? Because in my mind, and maybe I'm not saying it's not possible, but the probability is low. If we have agreements with the aliens, then it's not an unchecked power that's flying around our military bases. And wouldn't we push back if we have an agreement? Say, hey, what are you doing? We got agreements with you. Why are you flying around our nuclear bases and our military, right? Again, it doesn't make sense, right? These are things that don't check or make sense. I'm not saying they can't make sense. We need details. We need the proof, right? It just, again, I'm glad Burleson is pushing for the truth, but I wish he had people around him that were helping him figure out some of these questions, right? And push back on some of this stuff and get details like that. And I wish interviewers would ask him stuff like this, right? I should probably try to get an interview with Eric Burleson. I wonder if I could, right? Because I bet I could ask him some questions he hasn't been asked yet and things he hasn't thought about. Because again, I like Burleson. He still stays grounded through all of this, and he's busy, right? He's a congressman. Like, of course, he's got things to do. So he may not have time to think about all this stuff, but he's got so many people in his ear telling him things. But, why hasn't disclosure happened? Why hasn't the government said it? It just, again, doesn't make sense that our government doesn't want to say it because they don't want to admit we don't have control of our airspace, but also we got agreements with the aliens. Or is that bullshit? So, if you have these credible sources, but they're telling you uncredible things, but also credible things, it just lets you know that they don't really know what they're talking about. And they've never seen any proof or evidence of this stuff either, right? You can never find the source. You just always hear the guy telling the story about another guy, right? But you never hear from the guys, right? The source, right? So I don't know. We'll just have to see.
And you talked about the video that you're pursuing right now, the orbs. If there is one thing, one question you could have answered, one piece of information that is sort of missing that for you would be a game changer, that you think is out there, what would it be? Like, what would the one thing be right now if you could have it in your hands? What would it be?
Well, I mean, a lot of the people that have talked about interacting with these egg-shaped craft that we have in our possession, I want to see the craft. Okay. We've heard people that have claimed that they've gone into it and they've lost time. I want to go into the craft. I want to see for myself. Again, I'm from Missouri. You're going to have to show me. And so that's until I get to that point, everything is going to be blurry videos.
Okay. Final word. You can wrap it up with this.
Yeah, I just think that at the end of the day, this is a fascinating topic, and it's the more that we recognize that this is a national security threat, the better. I'm glad to see that this administration has recognized that it is a threat. Mm-hmm. I would point everyone to the two documents. There's been one document that was released in the first batch, and then the second document that's similar that are the accounts of individuals that were on site at one of our military installations that had an experience with these orbs. Mm-hmm. And to me, I got that briefing by those individuals who had been there shortly after the event happened. And that to me is something I would point everyone to. I think that evidence is much more important than some of the videos that.
Yeah, that was a fascinating one. I know the document you're talking about. I think it's that kind of thing that makes people in this building who used to laugh at this topic now all of a sudden take it seriously when they see from national security folks who are experiencing it.
Yeah, in fact, today at the baseball practice, I had one member kind of snicker about, to me about the UFO thing or about aliens. And I said, have you had the briefing? Have you had the briefing that me and Leader Scalise and others have had? I would recommend that you have that briefing before you turn, because you'll walk away from that briefing knowing that this is not comical anymore. Yeah.
Again, how is it a national security threat if we have agreements with the aliens? The same people telling Burleson and other members of Congress that we have craft, bodies, we're reverse engineering, and it's a security threat. But hey, we also have agreements with them. But again, this stuff isn't checking. Something's not adding up here, as usual. So just, it's like I'm beating a dead horse here. we're going to need the proof. And again, I'm glad that Eric Burleson wants to see it, right? Especially that claim about the egg-shaped craft, right? That we have in our possession, or crafts. Yeah, let's see it, right? And Burleson wants to step inside of it. Well, one, confirm it's an extraterrestrial craft, and then I guess step inside of it. But would that be safe? Shouldn't you get scientists on it first before you decide to step into it? And okay, you experience loss of time, right? Well, what if that loss of time does something to your brain and there's long-term side effects? Again, that's why you need scientists and medical professionals to look at this and to check people before they go in and go out. Like, you'd send in a robot first, like measure time, right? Like, and what does loss of time mean? Like, you step in the craft, you experience 5 minutes, and when you step out, they're like, oh, it's been 5 days. Is that what they mean? Like time dilation? What do they mean? Again, not explained, just using these sort of phrases and words that sound sensational, right? Loss of time, egg-shaped crab, blah, But again, we got to get to the nitty-gritty and get into the details. I really do need to interview Eric Burleson to see if I can get him to think about some of these deeper questions and question the things that are said to him. Oh, you said orbs? Why are you saying orb, right? What do you mean by plasma? Define plasma, and how can you tell it's that thing you just defined from this one video, right? And oh, I got a briefing about orbs, and this guy said he could, whatever. Again, get into the nitty-gritty of this egg-shaped craft. Well, let's determine it is extraterrestrial, right? If it's just an egg-shaped craft that there's loss of time, but it's man-made, well, that's cool, but not the end of it, right? And again, push back and ask, what do you mean by loss of time? And how do you know, can you prove that? And were there any psychological, mental, or medical ailments that came from that? And could there be long-term side effects you wouldn't see for 20 years, right? Again, what are we talking about? We just don't ask these deeper questions. We just hear the sensational claims that go, oh my God, and then just run off without asking deeper questions. You know what we need? We need lawyers on this. We need prosecutors. We need, these hard-nosed lawyers who will get in and ask the nitty-gritty questions, and scientists who will get in and ask the nitty-gritty questions, and who don't get wooed and awed by sensational claims. And no offense to Congress getting these briefings, but we need people analytical, right? Scientific, who take this stuff in and then follow up with a bazillion more detailed questions, fundamental questions, because if the thing is true, it can withstand all the questioning. If an extraordinary claim is true, factual, it can withstand the extraordinary questions that will come its way and the extraordinary pressure, right, for that extraordinary claim. So I just hope Burleson keeps doing what he's doing, but I also hope he adds in to start asking these deeper questions about these claims. All right, vetters, again, don't forget, please check out my film. It's available for purchase now. Go to psionics.film. I'll put a link in the description. I really hope you guys do support this film. It would mean a lot to me, and I'll be talking about it for months, to be honest with you. And I just really hope people support it. And I'm so nervous and anxious, to be honest with you, of like what the feedback is going to be. Are people going to like it? Are they going to hate it? Is it a mix of that? I just hope to God everyone doesn't hate this film. I worked really hard on it with a great team, director Glenn Barden, who I'll actually be releasing an interview that I did with him so y'all can get to know who he is over the weekend. Initially, I jumped on a Zoom call to just give advice on UFOs, and y'all are thinking about making some sort of film at Alamo, right? Is that, if I remember the call correctly, it was something along those lines. And
yeah, well, Sebastian, the executive producer, sort of hooked us up and said, you were doing some interesting stuff in the UFO world, and me being a documentary maker, maybe we should sort of speak, see if there was anything we could explore. I mean, I was open to it because I've always enjoyed UFOs you know, but as a kid, you know, I sort of got into it all. But then I pursued a sort of factual documentary career. And I had in the past been asked to do some UFO stuff for American channels. But when I spoke to the people, it always felt like a bit hokey.
Yeah.
There's a sort of, what I learned was, I'm British, so I come from a British tradition of documentaries where it has to be factual. You know, it's a factual story. It's like the news approach. You're telling factual stories. Whereas in the American documentary channel space, they're not governed by that rule. So it's just entertainment.
Sure.
So it was like, well, let's do something on UFOs, but essentially it was like they're just writing the story beforehand. It's like, go and investigate these UFOs, or sighting, or, you know, strange occurrence, and don't draw your own conclusions, because the conclusion is it was definitely UFOs. It was like, you know, it was like, and so I realized, you know, it's quite a big the industry, sort of entertainment industry, which is great, you know, fine, you know, I love entertainment, but it's not what I'm particularly interested in making. So, but when I spoke to you, I could, and what Betty were doing, I said, like, well, oh, you got a documentary approach. It's like, you're curious about a phenomenon, and you're not just buying into it. Yes, it's definitely this thing. You're going, let's look at the evidence. Let's kind of speak to people. Let's draw conclusions. So I thought sort of our approach to the subject matter aligned, which is why, you know, I wanted to speak to you more about stuff. And then we came up with, well, you told me about psionics, which I'd never heard about. And I was like, wow, really? Yeah. Surely not. So we started from there.
And we talk a little bit about the film, no spoilers, but just our inspiration behind it. And I really just want to get y'all to get to know the director of the film. You know, he's got a lot of experience. He's an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and we had a very small budget to make this. This was really a test, right? If this is successful, we can make a bigger budgeted documentary about, you know, UFOs. And that's what I'm hoping happens. So yeah, am I nervous? Yes. I've spent over a year on this project behind the scenes, you know, working with Vetted. I moved to a different country. Like, it's been so much. You have no idea how much I've actually had to deal with. And then just doing this film on top of it. And again, low budget, small budget. So you wear many hats. I've had to do a lot of things, just like Glenn has. And our editor and sound designer, our producers, right? Like, just doing a lot of things. And I'm just so nervous, man. I can't even like tell you how nervous I am about the reception of this film coming out and what people are going to think of it. You know, man, you know, so I'll have to do a live stream soon to, you know, get some feedback. Maybe next week I'll do a live stream where I can just hear back from people that have seen it and talk about it. I know there's going to be critiques. I critique films as well that I see in documentaries. Like, I get it. It's not a perfect movie, but I'm curious to hear what the critiques are and, you know, what the overall consensus is for the film. So again, psionics.film, go check it out. Please support this, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, Vettas, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.